Record. All right, so welcome. We're having so much fun. I hope you are feeling that lively laughter as we begin this, looking at this time. And really, honestly, this eclipse window was so intense, and it doesn't look like it's lightening up anytime soon. We are going to continue to have the rest of, well, really most of November as a time to continue with transmutation, transformation, alchemy, and really getting at the root of the essence of how do we transform those base elements into gold, and the gold of love. And if we think about what's going on in the world now, it needs our love more than ever. So I'll just share that I had a very severe injury I'm still recovering from. Getting better every day, but it's just really challenging. And it, of course, brings up everything when we have something like that and we get to sit and or lie down. I was doing a lot of lying down, and not be out doing all the things we're doing, and just have to be with what's going on and looking at old patterns and things I thought I had transmuted and transformed. There's still some residual energies that are there, especially around feeling like anything that's wrong is my fault. That's the big one for me. And I really am excited about getting at the deeper core of that and getting that one transmuted and transformed. So anyway, so I just thought I'd share that at the beginning. And we're going to be looking at the Scorpio season. We're going to be looking at Mars and Scorpio and the underworld. There's so many opportunities for us this month to continue the work that we've already been sort of directed into. So I'm just going to invite everybody else to share a little bit about what's been going on for them.
Yeah, it's been an intense eclipse portal, that's for sure. I've been noticing after I got home from Egypt that it took me a really long time to come back into my body. And thinking about too where the eclipses are falling in my chart, it's like 6th house, 12th house predominantly, and then now conjunct my ascendant, descendant. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who am I? Like, who, as the world changes, I feel like it just naturally inspires this, like, okay, and am I going to change with it? And is my whole approach to life shifting? And I guess I view that as part of the process of alchemy. And sometimes we might feel like, oh, we're doing something consciously, intentionally to catalyze change, but a lot of times too, in this beautiful life that we live, things just happen that are on the outside of us that are catalysts to change. And so we have to remain open to see, okay, now how do I respond to this? So that's been a lot of where my mindset has been, where my heart has been, is just how alive and present can I be, which I think is also very Scorpio, being a sign of being alive because you're aware of the finite nature of life, that we all die, and that even after death there is rebirth. But just that awareness of this life process, I think, can give us so much more reminder of just to live fully, very carpe diem, very seize the day, very live on purpose to the best that we can, be aware of what we can influence, what we can't influence, and just, you know, realize that we're not robots. Like, we are responsive, emotional beings, that we can't just have like one life strategy and just think it's going to work all the time. So even that way of being in the world and how we look at the world and our perception, all of that is undergoing such profound transformation. And so if that is how you're feeling, know that you're not alone. We're very much in a very alchemical time. And I think it's really actually more helpful to realize that we don't know, and to be more in the curiosity space and more in the asking questions while we are on our search for truth. So that's what I'm endeavoring right now.
And for me, it has been a lot about peace with everything that is going on, and how how can I feel peace from the inside out? And the more peace that I feel within myself, and that has been challenging in my life because I do have a lot of Aries and a very strong opposition to Saturn and Jupiter and like Capricorn moon. So everything has been always like inner tensions. And with this, I feel that, and we're going to be talking about that, the Mars in the underworld. There is this healing of the masculine that is such an important conversation, that is a masculine that takes action to protect, that really takes action from a peace place, from a connection to something bigger, not just from that ego that wants to colonize, to conquer, to exploit, but it's a masculine that has a higher ideal. I think that has been a lot in my life. And for me, the eclipse season, interestingly, it hasn't been that intense. It was very peaceful, the solar eclipse. I was in Greece in a priestess retreat, dancing. And it was very interesting to observe that many times we were doing all the same thing, like the ritual. And when my Aries got a little bit frustrated of following everyone else, it was like, okay, so find a place to express yourself. And it was like in the breaks, do something that you feel like doing, but you don't have to change everyone else to do what you want to do. You can just do it yourself. And that was such an interesting conversation within myself that I think for many people can help, because sometimes we have this need to express everything that we want to express. But when you are in a group of 20, 30 millions of people, like a country, right? We cannot be expressing ourselves all the time, because sometimes we are not really adding anything new to the whole conversation, and sometimes yes. So that knowing when is our time to speak, when is our time to take action, and from a peaceful place, not from lack, not from tension or war. And that's so important. And like to be at peace with reality itself, I think that's the key to really transform and transmute everything that is happening. And now we have that opportunity with Scorpio. It's not the easy way, right? Because it's always like the showing the shadow, but then we have this opportunity of really healing all the stuff that we have been carrying for lifetimes.
I love what you're saying, Mar, and just the reminder that my triple Aries daughter used to always say, I do it myself. That is an Aries mantra, right? And it's all about the mission, the purpose, restoring cosmic justice. That's also very Aries. And we are in a time where if we look at now that we move into the Scorpio Solar Month, we've been in it for a few days, but well, at the time of this recording, but the approaching the November cross quarter, when the sun reaches 15 degrees Scorpio, and the between time, it's an alchemical time. It's the time between the September equinox and the December solstice. It's between the world. And in fact, the ancient Celtic people saw these cross quarter times as they did their high ceremonies, and they're between, like they knew they were between something. And for the Celts, this was their new year. Samhain was the new year. So that was the ending of a year and the beginning of a new year. So being between the ending and beginning, and being in that space of co-creating what they wanted to have going forward. So that's what timing we're in here. And often did their ceremonies there, and they had like either at the full moon closest to the cross quarter, or the new moon closest to the cross quarter. So we just had the full moon closest to the cross quarter. So if we look at that as a 2-week window, that takes us to November 13th, when we'll have the Scorpio new moon, and November 7th being the exact cross quarter. So we have a lot that is already in motion in terms of what the eclipses have activated, that you both also really spoke beautifully too, and that how we can work with that. And then just Jupiter being in opposition to the sun on November 2nd, and Venus entering Libra on November 8th, and actually backing up, Venus opposite Neptune on November 3rd, and then trine Pluto on November 6th, and then will be, so there's all these energies that are leading up to that cross quarter time that are designed to help us and support us in creating what is it that we want to see going forward. And I love that you spoke into the peace piece that, coming from peace from the inside out. And also that comes from love. Like when we are in that place of greater love, then we're going to feel greater peace. And so what does it take to cultivate that? What's in the way of that? We're going to get to see. What are the things? What are the limiting beliefs that are in the way of that? What are the cultural conditioning that's in the way of that? We see a lot of things playing out on the world stage that really are in the way of that. So that's our opportunity. So with that, I'm going to pass it along.
And I would love to add, because in the moment that we are recording, we have Mars opposite Jupiter. And with the eclipse, Jupiter was just like stunning. Like, well, here in Spain, the eclipse, we could see only one little bit of the lunar eclipse, but it was possible. But then Jupiter was just shining. And Mars now, I think, is in this stage. Like, how do we do this energy in a healthy way? And how do we, with the Scorpio, like Mars in the underworld, getting the sun getting closer to Mars, to either start a new cycle or like the opposite, like it's a circle. So how do we see a cycle within this process of the sun and Mars, and this taking action from a place that it really takes into consideration everything. And I think with the Scorpio, is always taking into consideration that lower part, like the things that we don't want to look at, the things that are really painful, but the things that we are very afraid as well. But then the cave that we fear the most hides the treasure that you were looking for. Like, I always destroy that quote, but I think it really summarizes the mysteries of Scorpios. Like, is the places that we are afraid of doing something, but we know with our whole being that that's where we need to go. So as humanity in general now, is like, what is it that we need to let go in order to really do a society that is much more human? Because at the moment we are not doing a great job in that sense. And but at the same time, I think under the surface, there are many things happening. Like there are a lot of projects that are happening, and there are a lot of creative businesses, and there are a lot of like foundations and things that are happening that are bringing forward a new reality, and that requires a healthy Mars. And it's very interesting because it was Mars squaring Pluto where the war started, and it was Mars going to the COVID planet. It's always Mars, the one that is starting the process. So it's like, how do we embody Mars in a healthy way that it doesn't like the consequence is not a word, but it's an action towards life. So I think that is very important. And I think in the biggest scale, there are not so many things that we can do, but in our own lives, it's always like, how do I choose peace in my life? How do I choose courage in my life? And how do I really look at the things that I don't want to look at? Because that is the invitation for this month. And it's highlighted with the Jupiter, and then later in the month, Mars will be squaring Uranus. So no squaring, opposite Uranus. And that can be also like a breaking, like can be something shocking. So it's very important. I love that before recording, Nora was saying that about the eclipses, that it was, you were supposed to break sunglasses so life doesn't break you. You can explain better. But what I mean is like, how can we take action to really break free from the things that are not really working for us anymore, and to truly be brave to take the action in that sense. It's like with Mars, it's not about allowing others to do it. It's about what is, and sometimes the action is doing nothing. Like sometimes maybe the action is just wait. And that for a triple Aries has been a big lesson in my life, when like seriously, every time I just listen to the divine and it's telling me just wait, and like, just, it's the hardest thing you can ask me, but sometimes it's what it's meant to. So having that compass, I think at the moment, is truly important.
Yeah, that's so potent, everything that's being shared. And I do think with everything happening with Mars, and especially in Scorpio, one of Mars's ruling signs, I do feel like there's way more intensity coming through, where maybe we've been feeling, I know some people feel really tired during eclipse portals. I also think as Mars approaches the sun, there's a little bit of a shift, whether we're thinking this is the beginning of Mars' cycle or the end, or the middle point. There's, whenever we're going through these change points, it takes a lot of energy, and there's something old being let go of. And so when we're in that process of letting go, it's like you might not see that something's happening. It could be something deeply emotional in Scorpio. It could be processing a lot of fears, maybe in a subconscious or unconscious manner, but that takes energy. So I know I've heard from a lot of people, everybody's been needing to take extra naps. There's just been this kind of like energy suck, which I think is also associated with the eclipse portal. And so coming out of that into Mars in a more empowered state, sure, we could talk about the downside of Mars being in a more empowered state when it comes to what's happening in the collective, because that means that maybe the powers that should not be are also feeling that sense of empowerment but from a very distorted place. But then for us as individuals who are consciously, trying to do our best, trying to serve, trying to live our, love in the highest way and walking the beauty way, I think, at least from the people that I connect with, Mars is actually something that's more difficult to connect with when we're asked, especially as women, like, what do you want? What do you want to create? So I actually think Mars and Scorpio can be helpful to access that energy of like, I actually want something. I want to influence something. I want to change something. And so maybe something that has felt like, oh, I'm too tired to change this over the past couple of weeks. Maybe you get that renewal of, maybe it's, okay, I'm aware I have to confront this thing, and I'm going to be brave and go do it, like you said, Mar, and just realize like on the other side of that is that thing that I want. And so I actually see this ultimately as quite empowering for people. This combined with everything else that's going on, especially South Node in Libra and that whole solar eclipse in Libra that happened, I think to work in the highest way with all of this is just to make sure that we're not operating from too many projections, operating from this place of what we think other people expect us to do, because then it's not coming from that pure place of, oh, this is what my will center, my aligned will center is actually telling me is right action. If we're not coming from our body and we're just coming from our head, we are kind of in this murky territory of like, is this right action? I don't know. I'm confused. I'm weighing everything back and forth. I don't know what to do. But when we really tune into the Mars strategy, it's in the body. And so you can use this also as a time to practice understanding what is truth and right action feel like in your body, and just start slow, start with small things. And then as you lean into even more of that self-trust, maybe the bigger decisions that you have to make or the bigger changes you need to make will feel more possible. So I think this is a really beautiful opportunity for that. And so a few things, you both kind of spoke about them. So the new moon in Scorpio, that's November 13th, conjunct Mars, I think will be a really nice time to kind of plan for any sort of ritual or just intention around all of that. Like, may I release all, false projections of self around what I want? May I embody courage, because I don't know that we fully release fear ever, but may I embody courage to do the things that I know I need to do that are going to be good for me and the people that I love. And can I just come in with maybe some new conviction? And that's actually leading up really nicely, I think, to the Sun-Mars conjunction, which I'll let everybody else kind of share what they want to say about that, because I know this is a really exciting, big energy, a very Mars month for sure.
Truly. And so just coming back to the cross quarter briefly, that's leading us to the new moon on the November 13th. But one of the things that I love about the cross quarter time when the sun reaches 15 degrees Scorpio is it is with a star called Zubin el-Janubi. And that is one of the, that star is very close to the ecliptic. I mean, it goes right, planets can go right over that. It can be occulted by the moon and other things. So Zubin el-Janubi and Zubin el-Shamali are the two stars that mark the pans of the scales in the constellation also known as the scales, sometimes called Libra, but not the seasonal sign of Libra because Scorpio is there. So Zubin el-Janubi is at 15 Scorpio. So whenever we have a cross quarter point, the sun is with that star. And Zubin el-Shamali is at 21 Scorpio, where the new moon's going to be, and Mars is going to be. And so these two stars are and it's further off the ecliptic. It's not quite as close, but they're being activated. And if we think about the scales, and Mar, you'll appreciate this, having just come back from Egypt. When a person in ancient Egyptian times died, their heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, who is all about truth and justice and the cosmic balance, and the scales representing the cosmic balance and all of that. And if your heart was lighter than the feather, you got to go on to the duat or to heaven or to whatever they called it, the duat, I think. And then if your heart was heavier, then you would come back and cycle back through incarnation. And so bringing in that heart energy, and how do we feel peaceful in our heart? Love, bringing those two things together. So that, and from that place of love. So if we're coming from peace and love, we will change everything for ourselves first, personally, and then for the entire world. So that is happening, and we can tune into that at the cross quarter. Literally from now until the new moon, we are in that in-between time of the cross quarter. And so a lot of high magic can happen through our intention and connection to this energy. Then with the new moon on the 13th at 20 Aries, I think, or I mean Scorpio. And Mars is like at 22, it's right there with that. So as Nura was saying, such a great time to be doing ceremony around all of this and getting Mars to help activate it all. And then on the 17th, the Mars Sun conjunction at 25 degrees of Scorpio. And so and that's still very close to Zubin el-Shamali, so still very close to the scales of the in the constellation. So bringing that energy of how do we find our balance within this time. And part of that, with Scorpio overlaying the scales, part of that has to do with what we feel passionate about. What do we feel really lights us up and gets us enlivened and activates our life force in a very healthy, positive way? And then that's what can guide us into where we take action. If it doesn't light us up, if you're like, oh, that's kind of an interesting idea, then that's probably not yours. If you're like, whoa, that's so amazing, yeah, and you're feeling really enlivened by it, follow that track, take action towards that. So passing it on.
Absolutely. I would just add to that, Kaylin, too. This is something I am sharing with my clients all the time. And in this world, there's sometimes things that we don't want to do that we have to do, right? So if you can at all influence the order in which you do certain things, I just always suggest do the most energizing thing first, because then you're ensuring that you'll have more energy to do the other things. And you know how momentum works. You get into your flow state and things start feeling really good. So I think that's a really powerful reminder. And also that new moon, on November 13th is also with an opposition to Uranus. So the Mars-Uranus opposition, I think, is really a kind of break us into something new, break us out of an old pattern, break us into something new. I was sharing before we hopped on about how much glass has broken in my house the past couple weeks. And I learned that in ancient times during eclipse portals or leading up to an eclipse portal, people would have the ritual of maybe kind of like making an offering. So breaking something as an offering so that the eclipse portal didn't break them, or so that they were, it's kind of like sympathetic magic where you are offering something and in exchange. And so I didn't necessarily make that intention. I kind of learned about this in the middle of the eclipse portal, but I was like, well, maybe that's what's happening. Like maybe there's something about this sort of shattering energy, which I also associate with Uranus, that for me, it's happening with drinking glasses. Like I have to go out and buy new drinking glasses now because they've all been breaking. So luckily nobody's got hurt, but I'm aware of it. And I think there's something to that effect, especially so coming from the cross quarter and then just knowing that Scorpio season is a time of the thin veil and numinous liminal spaces. It's like everything, you can assume that there are things that have meaning. Like if things keep happening, so it means something. There's something for us to pay attention to, something for us to look at. Investigate is a beautiful Scorpio word that I love. And investigate what makes you feel excited. Like what do you want to investigate? I know for me, that's what brought me to astrology in the first place, because I wanted to understand. It's like, oh my gosh, we're talking about all of this truth. I need to learn more. So it's like whatever's doing that for you, what is pulling you? There's something, I think, magnetic about Scorpio. And so we can really tap into and attune our resonance and our magnetism, and magnets work both ways. So there's something also calling to you, and maybe by, going out and trying something different, maybe you will be more caught by the other pole of the magnet, so to speak. So I think there's this trust that, we're not here by ourselves doing everything alone, and we don't necessarily have to figure it out by ourselves, but it's like get to that right place, right time, and that you'll be magnetized. But it does, I think with Scorpio, require us to confront what we're afraid of. But I think a lot of people are more than anything afraid of their own power and afraid of like, what would it look like if I was actually more powerful? So just being with that and exploring that and seeing, okay, what are the maybe comfort zones that I've become very accustomed to with all of the Jupiter planets, with the Taurus planets, Jupiter and Uranus being in Taurus. Are there comfort zones that are being shaken up so that we can realize, oh yeah, like I like this comfort zone, it's nice, but is it really turning me on? Is it really making me feel alive? Is it really something that I want to spend the rest of my life doing if that's what's on the table? So I think that's what all of the Taurus Scorpio energy is really bringing to the table too.
Yes. And I love that the magnetism piece that I think for both, right? For Taurus and Scorpio is so important that it's not only about what you do, but it's also what you embody. And that Mars there is like taking action from that embodiment place, like knowing your power. And so you're not taking action from the fear, you're taking action feeling the fear, but from your power. And that is a different place. And we sometimes need to wait a little bit because Taurus takes time to really feel into the body. And I think within the Mars cycle, it's very interesting that the previous retrograde was in Gemini. So a lot of mind, a lot of air. And it was at the end of October, October 2022 until January 2023. And that was a very mental process. And the last Sun Mars conjunction was in October 2021 in Libra, in 15 degrees Libra. So it's also an air sign. So we have been in this place of air. And depending where we see that the cycle of Mars starts, we can feel that it's a Gemini cycle or is starting a Scorpio cycle, or a Capricorn cycle, because it will be visible. So there are many ways to see where we start the cycle, but what doesn't matter how we see it. The last conjunction was in air, the retrograde was in air, and now we are going into the waters of Scorpio and then moving into Capricorn. So it's a lot more all that mental energy that we have had for 2 years. Now, how can we embody and really own our own power and take action from that place within the area that we are? And then Venus will be in Libra as well. So it's like, I always feel that Mars needs to listen to Venus. It's like we take action after we are honoring, because Venus is not really pressuring us to look at her, right? It's something that is more conscious. So when we're consciously listening to Venus, the action that Mars takes is a lot more in alignment. So Mars in Scorpio listening to a Libra Venus is going to be a very different than Mars in Scorpio just taking action out of the blue. So I will say that there are these opportunities within the month to find that balance that Kylie was talking about, the heart and the feather. It's like, where is your heart and where are you taking action from? And see, like, how I feel it, that until the new moon, we are in a moment of more surrendering. And from the new moon, and especially the Mars-Sun conjunction, is more about taking action. So I will say, because we're still ending the eclipse season in a way, like the lunation of the eclipses are still going on until the new moon. So there is still this releasing of energy before we start with this power. So I will say that is a very practical note, to not to force things into happening before new moon and the sun Mars conjunction on the 17th.
Beautiful. I love that so much. I love everything you've all shared so much. And just this thought about, first of all, Venus. I love that you brought up Venus and going into Libra, and it's going to conjunct the moon on November 9th at the throat chakra, meaning that what she has to say, hopefully she's clearing the blocks to, her being able to speak her authentic voice at this time. And so, yeah, Mars listening to Venus, pretty cool. I think she has a lot of wisdom to share right now. And then the other thing, I just am thinking of Scorpio energy. And one of the ways that I have liked to describe it is like the sorcerer or the sorceress connecting to source. And if we think about the sun, it is the source of life and light for our planet. If we didn't have the sun in the way that we do, we wouldn't have the life that we have here as we know it. So it is source. So Mars and Scorpio as the sorcerer energy, sourcing new ways of being. And with the sun, the source, sourcing new ways of being. And as we, continue on through the month, but this just powerful sourcing. I mean, really, with Sun and Scorpio, the whole, until November 22nd when it goes into Sagittarius. But there's this powerful opportunity to source new things, as you've both spoken into so beautifully. So just wanted to confirm with that. And then I feel like there's maybe a couple of other things we want to say as we wrap this up, because of course, and I love what's been said about Uranus already, that breaking down, breaking up, breaking something. So we can break through to someplace else, right? So that energy is so alive and so present for us and is there to support us. If we resist, sometimes the energies get more intense to get us to see something in a new way. Hence, I feel like partly my injury was like, okay, I get it. I have to see things in a new way. So just know that it's better to just do it, to just say, okay, I'm willing to see this from a different perspective. I'm willing to have this new direction, this new insight, this new possibility in my life. And as we claim that going forward, then everything will come in to support it. So what all do you have to say to wrap up this month?
Oh, we are not saying anything more. I think that was amazing. So we cannot add. I love the sorcering. Yeah, I think that really summarizes like the potential of where we are moving towards. So, and it feels such an important the Sun Mars conjunction in Scorpio, and then afterwards like sextile Pluto is this energy of really sourcing our power and really moving towards from there, from the area that we are really powerful from. And the more people we do that, the more we will change the collective as well. So there is this inner individual power of what is it that is within my range of possibility. But it's amazing what sometimes one human being can do. And if we are more and more human beings doing things from a peaceful place, reality can change quickly. So there is this hope as well in times of crisis. And I think that is also the gift of the balance. I always see the scales and Libra, both of them as this infinity symbol of saying like we hold the pain and the fear and everything that is truly going on, that is a reality. And then we also hold all the possibilities, all the beauty, all the dreams, and the heart that as human beings we have. And with both at the same time, we can truly make a difference. And I think at this time, there is something that I also wanted to add. It was money and finances. And I know we're ending up, but I think money and really owning our ability to generate resources is very much in the collective as well with this. And with Mars in this is like taking action towards what truly fires up within ourselves to generate resources in that way and to value other people purposes and other people businesses and all, like to truly value with our money. Like it's such an important part of what we are transmuting in the collective, that I think that is something that I will highlight as well, to both generate ourselves and to value what other people generate.
I love all of this, and I love the play on words, or maybe the reclaiming of the power of words, like sourcing and resourcing even, and how that also ties into both Taurus and Scorpio axis of resources, both within and around us. And I just keep coming back to the question of what would love do? And I think sometimes when it's just overly complicated, it's like, well, what would somebody who loves themselves do? What would somebody who loves this other person do? Love makes us peaceful, and love makes us brave when we need to be. And so how can we just keep reminding ourselves of that in this face of change and great times of transformation?
Beautiful. Love is the answer. Yes.
Always the answer.
Thank you, everyone. We look forward to seeing you our next time around. And remember, love heals everything, and love is the answer. And love changes it all, too. Yeah, beautiful.
Love you all.
Wow, yes. Bye.
Bye.